The massive doors of the galactic arena slid open with a hiss that echoed through the metal corridors. Taemin walked through carrying a silver case containing treaty documents. His black diplomatic uniform was simple and clean. He had been traveling for 3 days to reach this station, and he was tired. All he wanted was to deliver these papers and go home to Earth. The arena station called Vel 9 floated in neutral space between 12 different star systems. It was built centuries ago as a place where alien species could meet without fighting wars. The walls were covered in symbols from dozens of civilizations. Strange creatures walked past Taemin in the hallways. Some had 6 legs. Others had scales or fur or skin that glowed. He had gotten used to seeing aliens during his work as a courier, but this place still made him feel small. Taemin turned a corner, heading toward the diplomatic wing. That was when he saw them blocking his path. 5 Borath warriors stood in formation across the corridor. They were massive creatures, each one at least 8 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in thick armor plating that grew naturally from their reptilian skin. Dark red and brown scales reflected the station lights. Their eyes were yellow with black slits for pupils. The largest Borath stepped forward. His armor was decorated with battle marks and symbols of rank. This one was clearly their leader. His name was Gralthor, though Taemin did not know that yet. The creature looked down at the human with something like disgust. "Human," Gralthor said in the common trade language that most species used. His voice was deep and rough like grinding rocks. "You carry documents for a treaty with the Vrexian Empire." Taemin stopped walking but did not step back. "That's correct. I'm a diplomatic courier from Earth. These documents are protected under galactic law." Gralthor laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. The other Borath warriors joined in, their laughter echoing off the metal walls. "Galactic law," Gralthor repeated. "Your weak species hides behind laws and papers. You have no strength, no honor." "I'm just here to deliver documents," Taemin said calmly. "I don't want any trouble. But trouble has found you, soft skin." Gralthor moved closer. Taemin could smell the alien's breath now. It smelled like sulfur and meat. "The mining systems in the Kepler sector." "Earth claims them. The Borath clans claim them. We say your species is too weak to deserve such valuable resources." Taemin felt his heart beat faster, but he kept his face calm. This was dangerous. The Kepler mining rights were worth billions. Wars had started over less. "The treaty addresses resource sharing," he said. "If your people have concerns, you can send representatives to the negotiation table." "Negotiation?" Gralthor spat the word. More human weakness. More hiding behind words. The massive alien crossed his arms over his chest. "I offer you a better solution. Trial by combat. Ancient galactic law allows it. My strength against yours. If I win, Earth surrenders all claims to Kepler. If you win, the Borath withdraw our challenge." The other warriors laughed again. One of them said something in their own language, and they all found it very funny. Taemin understood why they were laughing. He was 5'9" and weighed maybe 170 pounds. Gralthor probably weighed half a ton. "I'm not a soldier," Taemin said. "I'm a courier." "Then Earth sends cowards to do their work." Gralthor's eyes narrowed. "Refuse if you want. But know that every species on this station will hear about it. They will know that humans talk about equality and treaties but run away when challenged to prove their worth." Taemin closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about calling his supervisor. He thought about security forces on the station. But he knew what would happen. Refusing would be seen as weakness. It would damage Earth's reputation. Other species would question every human claim and treaty. His government had worked for years to build respect among the galactic community. "I accept," Taemin said quietly. Gralthor smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Good. The arena in 1 hour. Bring whatever weapons you need. Not that they will help you." The Borath warriors turned and walked away, their heavy footsteps shaking the floor. Taemin stood alone in the corridor. He looked down at the silver case in his hands. Then he tapped the communication device on his wrist. "G1, he said. "We have a problem." 40 minutes later, Taemin stood in a small preparation room near the arena floor. G1 paced back and forth. She was his colleague, another human diplomat assigned to this sector. Her face was pale with worry. "This is insane," she said for the 10th time. "You can't fight a Borath warrior. They're built like living tanks. Their skin is literally armor." "I know," Taemin said. He was stretching, pulling his arms across his chest and rotating his shoulders. "We can call Earth. Get security involved. This is intimidation. And then what? We look weak. Every species on this station will think humans can't back up their words. Taemin touched his toes, feeling the stretch in his legs. Besides, I accept it under galactic law, it's binding. Ji-won stopped pacing. Taemin, you're going to die. He looked at her and smiled a little. Maybe, but maybe not. He stood up straight and took off his diplomatic jacket. Under it, he wore a simple black shirt. Did I ever tell you what I did before I became a courier? You said you were in the military, special operations. 8 years. Before that, I trained in Taekwondo since I was 6 years old. My father was a martial arts instructor. He rolled his neck, hearing it crack. Humans have been fighting for millions of years, Ji-won. We're good at it. We just fight differently than species like the Borath. Different how? They rely on strength and armor. They're ambush predators. We're persistence hunters. We outlast our prey, we think. We adapt. He picked up a bottle of water and drank. I've studied Borath physiology. They're strong, but they have weaknesses. Joints between armor plates. Limited stamina. Slow turning speed. Ji-won looked at him with a mixture of hope and fear. You really think you can win? I think I have a chance. And that's enough. A tone sounded in the room. A mechanical voice announced that the trial would begin in 5 minutes. Taemin walked toward the door leading to the arena. Ji-won followed him. What can I do? She asked. Watch, record everything. And if I do die, make sure people know I tried. He paused at the door. Beyond it, he could hear the sound of a crowd. Hundreds of aliens had gathered to watch. He could hear their voices, their strange languages mixing together. Many were laughing. Taemin took a deep breath. Then he opened the door and stepped into the light of the arena. The arena was enormous. Taemin walked out onto a circular floor made of reinforced metal plates. Above him, viewing platforms rose up in tiers like an ancient coliseum. The platforms were packed with alien spectators. He saw creatures of every type. Some had wings, others had tentacles. There were beings made of crystalline structures and others that seemed to be living clouds of gas contained in suits. All of them were looking at him, and most of them were laughing. The sound washed over him like a wave. High-pitched chittering from the insect species. Deep booming laughter from the heavy gravity dwellers. Musical sounds from beings that communicated through tones. But the message was the same in every language. They thought this was a joke. They thought he was about to die for their entertainment. Taemin walked to the center of the arena floor. His footsteps echoed in the brief moments when the laughter died down. He looked up at the crowds and kept his face blank. He had learned long ago not to show fear or anger. Both were weaknesses in combat. On the opposite side of the arena, a much larger door opened. Growlthor emerged. The Borath warrior had changed into full ceremonial battle armor. Metal plates covered the gaps between his natural armor scales. On his shoulder sat a rank symbol that glowed red. In his right hand, he carried a war club as thick as Taemin's torso. The club was carved from some dark wood and embedded with energy cores that pulsed with blue light. The crowd's laughter turned to cheers. Clearly, many of them supported the Borath. Growlthor raised his war club above his head and roared. The sound was deafening. Taemin felt it in his chest like a physical blow. A floating platform descended from above. Standing on it was an insectoid creature with 4 arms and a triangular head. This was Veshka, the arena referee. Her species was known for being strictly neutral and following rules precisely. Attention, Veshka said. Her voice came from speakers around the arena, translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. This is a formal trial by combat under ancient galactic law, Article 7, Section 3. The challenger is Growlthor of the Borath clans. The challenged is Taemin of Earth. The terms are as follows. Combat continues until one fighter submits or is unable to continue. The winner's claim is legally binding. Outside interference will result in immediate disqualification and legal penalties. Veshka's 4 eyes looked down at Taemin. Human, you have the right to select weapons from the arena cache. Do you wish to do so? This was standard procedure. The arena kept a collection of various weapons, so that fighters from different species could choose something appropriate. Taemin had seen the list earlier. There were energy weapons, bladed weapons, impact weapons, and various types of projectile throwers. No, Taemin said clearly. I need no weapons. The arena fell silent for a moment. Then the laughter returned, louder than before. Even some of the more serious observers were making sounds of disbelief. On the viewing platforms, he could see aliens exchanging what must have been bets. The odds were probably terrible. Growlthor laughed loudest of all. "The human has chosen death," he announced. "So be it." Veshka looked at Taemin one more time. "You are certain? This decision cannot be reversed." "I'm certain." G1's voice came through his earpiece, quiet and desperate. "Taemin, please. Take a weapon. Any weapon." He touched his ear briefly, a signal that he had heard her but would not change his mind. On the viewing platform where G1 stood, he could see her gripping the railing. Next to her were other humans who worked on the station. All of them looked terrified. Taemin pulled off his black shirt. His body was lean and muscular, built for endurance rather than bulk. Scars crossed his chest and arms, old injuries from training and combat. He had the body of a human athlete, a runner, or a fighter. Compared to Growlthor's massive armored form, he looked impossibly fragile. He began to stretch systematically. First his legs, pulling each knee to his chest, then his arms, rotating them in wide circles. He dropped into a deep squat and held it, feeling his muscles warm up. The crowd found even this funny. To them it looked like a ritual before a sacrifice, but some in the crowd were not laughing. In one section, a group of Krev warriors watched silently. The Krev were known as some of the best fighters in the galaxy. Their species had been at war for 3,000 years. One of the Krev leaned toward another and said something. They both nodded slowly. On another platform, an old Thraxian general watched through mechanical eye enhancements. He had fought in 20 campaigns across 10 star systems. He did not laugh. He watched the humans' movements carefully. "Interesting," he said to his aide. "The creature moves well. Too well for a civilian." Taemin finished stretching. He stood in the center of the arena and took a fighting stance. His left foot forward, right foot back, knees slightly bent. His hands were up but relaxed, protecting his face and body. It was a basic stance, one he had practiced 10,000 times. Veshka raised one of her forearms. "Fighters ready?" She paused. Her arm dropped. "Begin." Growlthor did not waste time. He charged immediately. For a creature of his size, he moved with surprising speed. His war club swung in a horizontal arc aimed at Taemin's chest. If it connected, it would break every bone in the human's torso and probably kill him instantly. Taemin did not try to block. He did not try to catch the weapon or deflect it. He simply stepped back. One quick step, just far enough that the war club whistled past his chest with inches to spare. The momentum of the swing carried Growlthor forward slightly. The crowd gasped. It had happened so fast that many had expected to see the human die in the first second, but he was still standing. Growlthor snarled and attacked again. This time he brought the club down in a vertical smash. Taemin sidestepped. The club hit the arena floor with a boom that shook the entire space. Metal plates buckled under the impact. Energy cores in the weapon discharged with a flash of blue light. Taemin had already moved away. He circled to Growlthor's left side, staying light on his feet. The Borath pulled his club from the floor and turned to face the human again. "Stand still and die," Growlthor growled. Taemin did not respond. He kept moving, circling, his eyes locked on his opponent. He was watching everything, the way Growlthor's weight shifted, which foot moved first, how the Borath telegraphed his attacks with small movements of his shoulders. Growlthor attacked again. And again. Each strike was powerful enough to destroy stone. Each one came from different angles. High, low, horizontal, diagonal. The war club whistled through the air with deadly force, and Taemin avoided every single one. He moved with minimal effort, never using more energy than necessary. One step back, half step to the side, duck under. Each evasion looked almost effortless. But the crowd was beginning to understand that this was not luck. This was skill. The laughter had stopped. The arena was quieter now. Aliens leaned forward on their platforms, watching closely. This was not going the way they had expected. On the human viewing platform, G1's hands were shaking. But she was smiling. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on." The Krev warriors nodded to each other again. "He's trained," one said. "Look at his footwork. That's not natural talent. That's years of practice." The Thraxian general zoomed in his mechanical eyes, studying every movement. Fascinating. The human is not fighting at all yet. He is learning. He is studying his opponent's patterns. Down on the arena floor, Growlthor was breathing harder. Only 2 minutes had passed, but he had thrown dozens of full-power strikes. Each one had missed. His armor was heating up from exertion. His yellow eyes showed frustration. Taemin continued to circle, patient and calm. He had not thrown a single strike yet. He was waiting, watching, learning the distance, the timing, the patterns. And then he saw what he was looking for. A small gap, a tiny opening between armor plates on Growlthor's left knee. Taemin's expression did not change, but inside he smiled. Now the fight would really begin. Growlthor swung his war club in another wide arc. Taemin ducked under it and stepped closer instead of backing away. For a split second he was inside the Borath's range, too close for the club to hit him effectively. In that moment, Taemin's right leg snapped out in a precise kick. His heel struck the gap between armor plates on Growlthor's left knee. It was not a powerful kick by human standards. Taemin weighed 170 pounds. Growlthor weighed nearly half a ton. But power was not the point. The kick targeted the joint precisely, hitting nerve clusters and connective tissue that were the same in most bipedal species. Growlthor's leg buckled. He stumbled to the side, roaring in pain and surprise. Before he could recover, Taemin was already moving away, returning to safe distance. He resumed his circling pattern as if nothing had happened. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Thousands of aliens made sounds of surprise in hundreds of different ways. On the betting platforms, odds began to shift. This was no longer quite as one-sided as it had seemed. Growlthor turned to face the human, his yellow eyes now filled with genuine anger. "You dare," he hissed. "You dare strike me?" Taemin did not reply. Words were a waste of energy. He kept his breathing steady and his eyes on his opponent. His father had taught him that talking during a fight was for people who did not take fighting seriously. The Borath warrior charged again, but now Taemin could see the slight limp. The left leg was not moving quite as smoothly. Good. That meant the strike had been effective. Growlthor was already damaged and the fight had barely started. This time, Growlthor tried a different approach. Instead of swinging the war club, he thrust it forward like a spear, trying to impale the human. It was a faster attack, harder to dodge, but Taemin had been watching for variations. He twisted his body to the side. The club shot past his ribs. He could feel the heat from its energy cores. As the club extended past him, Taemin struck again. This time he aimed for Growlthor's elbow joint on the arm holding the weapon. His fist was small compared to the Borath's massive limb, but he aimed for the specific point where nerves ran close to the surface. Another precise strike. Another hit on vulnerable tissue. Growlthor's grip on the war club weakened for just a moment. He did not drop it, but Taemin saw his fingers spasm. Another piece of information stored away. The elbow was sensitive. The grip could be compromised. Taemin returned to circling. He was starting to sweat now. The arena was warm and movement was work. But his breathing was still controlled. He had run marathons in his military training. He had done exercises that lasted for hours. This kind of movement was something his body was built for. Humans were persistence hunters. His ancestors had chased prey across the African savanna for days until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. Taemin carried that evolutionary advantage in every cell. He could keep moving like this for a very long time. Growlthor attacked again, and again. Each time Taemin evaded, and each time Growlthor missed, Taemin counterattacked. A kick to the same knee, a punch to the ribs where armor plates met, a strike to the neck, a kick to the other knee. None of the strikes were devastating by themselves. Taemin could not hurt Growlthor with one blow. But he was not trying to. He was accumulating damage. Death by 1,000 cuts, as the old saying went. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The pattern continued. Growlthor would attack with his war club. Taemin would evade and counter. The Borath was getting slower. His breathing was heavy now, loud enough that the entire arena could hear it through the speakers. His scales were darker with increased blood flow. His movements were less precise. Taemin was also breathing harder, but his movements were still clean. Still efficient. He was starting to understand Growlthor's patterns completely now. The Borath had maybe 8 different attack combinations. Strong fighters, Taemin thought, but not very creative. They relied too much on power and not enough on variation. On the viewing platforms, the mood had completely changed. Nobody was laughing anymore. Aliens watched in silence or made quiet sounds of disbelief. This was not supposed to be possible. Humans were weak. Everyone knew that. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. They were soft creatures who hid behind technology. But this human was dismantling a Borath champion. The Krev warriors were standing now, pressed against the railing. "Look at the efficiency," one said with something like awe in his voice. "Every movement has a purpose. No wasted energy. This is master-level fighting." The Thraxian general was recording everything with his mechanical eyes. "I need to send this to the military academy," he said. "This is a lesson in tactical combat." On the human platform, Jiwan was crying. Not from sadness, but from tension and hope. Other humans around her were shouting encouragement. "Come on, Taemin. You can do this." Their voices were small compared to the thousands of aliens, but Taemin heard them. 15 minutes. Growlthor was in trouble now. He had dropped to one knee twice, forced down by the accumulated damage to his legs. Both knees were compromised. His left arm was nearly useless, hanging at his side. The war club was in his right hand, but his grip was weak. The mighty warrior who had entered the arena with such confidence was now desperate. His attacks were wild, uncontrolled. He was fighting on pure aggression and pride now. All technique was gone. Taemin recognized this phase. He had seen it in training and in real combat. This was when an opponent became most dangerous because they became unpredictable, but it was also when they were closest to defeat. Growlthor suddenly dropped his war club. The weapon fell to the arena floor with a heavy clang. The Borath spread his arms wide. "No more tricks," he snarled. "Fight me like a warrior. Strength against strength." He was trying to lure Taemin into a grappling match. If the Borath could get his hands on the human, he could use his superior mass and strength to crush him. It was his last chance to win. Taemin understood the trap, but he also saw the opportunity. Growlthor was exhausted. His legs were barely supporting him. His left arm was damaged. If Taemin could get inside his guard, close the distance before Growlthor could grab him, there might be a way to end this. It was risky. One mistake and those massive arms would close around him like a vice. But Taemin had not come this far by playing it safe. He stopped circling. For the first time since the fight began, he moved directly toward his opponent, not rushing but walking forward with purpose. Growlthor's eyes widened. He spread his arms wider, ready to grab the human the moment he came into range. His breathing was ragged. Sweat dripped from his scales. Taemin was 5 steps away. 4 steps. 3 steps. The crowd held its breath. Thousands of aliens watched in complete silence. This was the moment that would decide everything. 2 steps. Growlthor lunged forward, his massive arms sweeping in to trap the human. 1 step. Taemin dropped low, sliding under the grasping arms. His movement was smooth and fast, like water flowing around a rock. He came up behind Growlthor, on the Borath's left side where the damaged arm could not protect him. And then Taemin struck, not a single blow, but a combination. 3 rapid kicks to the back of Growlthor's left knee. The joint, already damaged and supporting most of the Borath's weight, gave out completely. Growlthor fell to one knee with a cry of pain. Taemin did not stop. He jumped, using Growlthor's back as leverage, and drove his elbow into the base of the Borath's skull, right where the armor plates met the neck, right where the spine was most vulnerable. It was not enough to cause serious injury. Taemin did not want to kill, but it was enough to stun. Growlthor collapsed forward onto his hands. His breathing was desperate now, gasping. He tried to stand, but his legs would not support him. He tried to turn to find the human, but his body would not respond properly. Taemin stood behind him, breathing hard but still standing strong. He had won. Everyone in the arena knew it. But the fight was not officially over until Growlthor submitted or could not continue. "Yield," Taemin said quietly. "You fought with honor, but this is over." Growlthor's response was to roar and try to stand again. Pride would not let him quit. The Borath warrior had never submitted in his life. He would rather die. Taemin sighed. He had hoped it would not come to this. But if Growlthor would not yield, then Taemin had to make him unable to continue. Time to finish it. Growlthor tried to stand but fell forward again. His massive body shook with the effort. All around the arena, aliens watched in stunned silence. Some had seen hundreds of fights in this arena. None had seen anything like this. A human, unarmed and unarmored, had brought down a Borath champion. But the fight continued because Growlthor would not yield. The warrior's pride would not allow it. He pushed himself up on his hands again, trying to rise. His arms shook. His breathing came in rough gasps that sounded painful. Taemin felt tired. not exhausted, but he had been moving and fighting for almost 20 minutes without stopping. His shirt was soaked with sweat. His legs burned from constant movement. His hands ached from striking armored plates. But he was still standing. Still capable. He watched Growlthor struggle to rise and felt something unexpected. Respect. The Borath was broken and defeated, but he kept trying. That took courage. Taemin understood that kind of courage. He had seen it in fellow soldiers who fought even when wounded. It was the courage of warriors who refused to accept defeat. But courage without wisdom was just stubbornness. And stubbornness would get Growlthor killed. "You cannot win," Taemin said, loud enough for Growlthor to hear. "Your legs are damaged. Your arm is damaged. You have no weapon. I respect your strength and your courage. But this is over. Please yield." Growlthor's response was to spit on the arena floor. "I do not yield to prey animals," he said between gasping breaths. "Borath warriors do not surrender to creatures without honor." Taemin felt a flash of anger but controlled it. Getting emotional was a mistake in combat. "I am not a prey animal," he said calmly, "and I have shown you honor by offering mercy. Do not waste it." "Kill me then," Growlthor said. "If you can," the Borath suddenly moved. Despite his injuries, despite his exhaustion, he lunged at Taemin with his remaining strength. It was a desperate move, uncoordinated and slow. Taemin saw it coming from far away. He could have simply stepped aside and let Growlthor collapse. But something changed in Taemin's mind. He realized that Growlthor would never yield. The Borath warrior's culture, his pride, his entire identity was built on strength. To submit to a human would destroy everything he believed about himself. He would rather die than live with that shame, so Taemin had to make the choice for him. As Growlthor lunged forward, Taemin moved to meet him. Instead of avoiding the attack, he stepped inside it. He grabbed Growlthor's right arm with both hands. The arm was as thick as Taemin's thigh, but he did not need to overpower it. He just needed to control it. Using Growlthor's own momentum, Taemin twisted and turned. It was a judo technique called Tai Otoshi, a body drop throw. He had practiced it thousands of times with opponents of all sizes. The principle was simple. Use leverage and momentum instead of strength. Make the opponent's weight work against them. Growlthor's massive body went up and over. For a moment, half a ton of Borath warrior was airborne. Then he crashed down onto the arena floor with an impact that shook the entire space. The metal plates buckled under the force. Warning lights flashed as the floor's structural integrity was compromised. Growlthor lay on his back. The wind knocked out of him. His yellow eyes stared up at the distant ceiling, dazed and confused. How had a creature 1/10 his weight thrown him through the air? Taemin did not give him time to recover. He moved quickly, circling around to Growlthor's head. The Borath tried to roll away, but his damaged body was too slow. Taemin dropped down behind Growlthor's head and wrapped his right arm around the thick neck. This was dangerous. Growlthor could still grab him, could still crush him with those massive hands. But Taemin was betting that the warrior was too stunned and exhausted to react quickly enough. He locked in the choke. His right arm crossed Growlthor's throat. His left hand gripped his right wrist, reinforcing the hold. He squeezed his own bicep against one side of Growlthor's neck, his forearm against the other. This was a blood choke, a technique that cut off blood flow to the brain through the carotid arteries. It was one of the oldest fighting techniques humans had developed. Simple, effective, and relatively safe if released in time. It did not damage the throat or windpipe. It simply caused unconsciousness within seconds by restricting blood to the brain. Growlthor realized what was happening. His hands came up trying to pry Taemin's arm away. His strength was still considerable even in his weakened state. His fingers dug into Taemin's arm and it hurt. But Taemin had positioned himself correctly, using his whole body to maintain the hold. Growlthor could not get leverage to break it. "Yield," Taemin said again, his voice strained from the effort. "Please, I do not want to choke you unconscious. Yield and this ends with your honor intact." Growlthor struggled, his body thrashing, but the lack of blood to his brain was already affecting him. His movements became weaker. His hands fumbled at Taemin's arm but could not grip properly anymore. Around the arena, thousands of aliens watched. Nobody made a sound. The tension was unbearable. Would the mighty Borath warrior yield, or would he lose consciousness and be defeated completely? On the viewing platform, Jiwan had her hands over her mouth. Other humans around her were shouting, but she could not hear them. She could only watch as Taemin held the choke, his face showing the strain and effort. 5 seconds passed. Growlthor's struggles were weaker now. His yellow eyes were losing focus. 7 seconds. His hands fell away from Taemin's arm, dropping to the floor. 8 seconds. Growlthor's body went limp. Taemin held the choke for 1 more second to be sure, then immediately released it. He rolled away from Growlthor and stood up quickly, in case the Borath recovered faster than expected. But Growlthor remained still, unconscious on the arena floor. His chest rose and fell with breathing, proving he was alive. But he was defeated. Complete silence filled the arena. Then Veshka's voice came over the speakers. Growlthor is unable to continue. The victor is Taemin of Earth. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the arena erupted. Thousands of aliens made sounds of shock, awe, and excitement. Some were cheering. Others were simply crying out in disbelief. On the betting platforms, fortunes changed hands. On the species observation platforms, leaders and generals leaned back in their seats, their minds racing with implications. The human viewing platform was chaos. Humans were jumping, shouting, crying with joy and relief. Jiwon was sobbing and laughing at the same time. They had witnessed something impossible. One of their own had defeated a species known for military dominance. Taemin stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard. His arms hung at his sides. His entire body ached. He had cuts and bruises from the few times Growlthor had managed to graze him. His hands were swollen from striking armored plates. But he was standing. He had won. Medical teams rushed onto the arena floor surrounding Growlthor. They checked his vital signs and began emergency treatment. The Borath warrior would live. He would recover. But he had been defeated. Veshka's platform descended. The insectoid referee approached Taemin. "The terms of the trial are satisfied," she announced. "The Borath clans withdraw all claims to the Kepler sector. Earth's mining rights are recognized under galactic law." Taemin nodded, too tired to speak. His legs were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. He wanted to sit down. He wanted water. He wanted to go home, but the crowd was still watching. Species from across the galaxy were seeing a human for the first time, not as a weak newcomer, but as a capable warrior. This moment mattered beyond just one fight, so Taemin straightened his back. He walked over to where Growlthor was being treated. The medical team looked at him nervously, but he just knelt down beside the unconscious warrior. When Growlthor's eyes opened a minute later, the first thing he saw was Taemin's face. "You fought with great strength," Taemin said. "I am honored to have faced you." Growlthor stared at him. Confusion, anger, and shame mixed in his yellow eyes. His mouth opened, then closed. He did not know what to say. His entire worldview had been shattered. Finally, he spoke. His voice was weak and rough. "How, you are so small." "So weak." Taemin smiled just a little. "Humans are not strong like you. But we are persistent. We adapt, we think. And we have been fighting each other for millions of years. We learned to be very, very good at it." He stood up and offered his hand to help Growlthor rise. The Borath looked at the hand for a long moment. It was small and soft compared to his own massive claws. But that small hand had defeated him. Slowly, with great effort and help from the medical team, Growlthor stood. He towered over Taemin once again. But something had changed. When he looked down at the human now, it was not with contempt. It was with something closer to respect. The crowd saw this moment. They saw the defeated warrior and the victorious human standing together, and they understood. Humans were not prey. They were predators. Dangerous ones. The medical team led Growlthor away on a floating stretcher. The Borath warrior kept looking back at Taemin as they carried him toward the medical wing. His expression was difficult to read. There was no anger there anymore, just confusion and something that might have been curiosity. Taemin watched him go, then finally allowed himself to relax. His legs nearly gave out. Jiwon appeared at his side so quickly he did not see her approach. She caught his arm and steadied him. "You insane, brilliant idiot," she said, her voice shaking. "I thought you were dead." "I was so sure you were dead." "Not dead," Taemin said. His voice came out rougher than expected. "Just tired. Very, very tired." Jiwon helped him walk toward the exit, but they did not get far. Aliens began approaching from all directions. Not threatening, just curious and excited. A Krev warrior pushed through the crowd and stopped directly in front of Taemin. "Human," the Krev said in the common tongue. His species was known for being direct. "I am Commander Vel of the Krev 3rd Legion." I have fought in 42 battles. I have studied combat for 60 years. What you did here was exceptional. Where did you learn to fight like that? Taemin was not sure how to answer. My father taught me when I was young. Then the military trained me. Humans have many different fighting styles. I learned several of them. Several? Another alien pushed forward. This one was from a species Taemin did not recognize. It had blue skin and 4 arms. You mean there are different types of human combat? Yes, many. Taekwondo, judo, boxing, wrestling, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and dozens more. We have been fighting each other for our entire existence. Every culture developed their own methods. The crowd around them grew larger. More aliens pushed in, all wanting to hear. Taemin saw the Thraxian general making his way through the crowd as well. Incredible, the blue-skinned alien said. And all humans can learn these techniques? Any human can learn, Taemin confirmed. It takes time and training, but yes. We teach children as young as 5 or 6 years old. This caused a ripple of sounds through the crowd. The concept seemed to shock them. A species that trained their children to fight. The Thraxian general finally reached them. He was old, with cybernetic implants covering half his face. Human Taemin, I am General Cax of the Thraxian Empire. I must speak with you about establishing a training exchange program. We would send our soldiers to Earth to learn your combat methods. In exchange, we would share our military technology. Before Taemin could respond, the Krev commander interrupted. The Krev also wished to establish such a program. Our warriors would benefit greatly from human training. More voices joined in. Species after species wanted to talk about alliances, trade deals, military exchanges, cultural programs. They were all seeing Earth and humanity in a completely new way, not as weak newcomers to be exploited, but as potentially valuable allies with unique skills. Ji-Wan pulled Taemin back slightly. Everyone, please, she said in her diplomatic voice. Taemin needs medical attention. You can submit formal requests through proper channels. The Earth Diplomatic Corps will review all proposals. She managed to create a path through the crowd, half-dragging Taemin toward the medical wing. He was grateful. His body was starting to really hurt now. Adrenaline was gone and every bruise and strain made itself known. In the medical wing, human doctors were waiting. They sat him down and began examining him. Nothing was broken, they determined, but he had deep bruises, strained muscles, and his hands were in bad shape from hitting armored plates. While they worked on him, Ji-Won stood nearby with her tablet looking through incoming messages. Her eyes kept getting wider. Taemin, she said quietly. You need to see this, she showed him the tablet. Messages were flooding in from across the galaxy. News services were requesting interviews. Military academies wanted him to speak. Governments were sending official congratulations. Even entertainment companies wanted to make shows about the fight. It has been 1 hour since the fight ended, Ji-Won said. And you are already famous across 12 star systems. The video of the fight has been viewed 60 million times. Taemin stared at the tablet. I was just trying to avoid a diplomatic incident. Well, you did that. And you also showed the entire galaxy that humans are not to be underestimated. She scrolled through more messages. Oh, this one is interesting. It is from the Borith High Command. What do they want? A rematch? No. They are requesting a formal meeting with Earth's military leaders. They want to discuss forming an alliance. She looked up from the tablet. Apparently, after seeing what one untrained human diplomat could do to their champion, they want to know what trained human soldiers are capable of. A doctor finished wrapping Taemin's hands. You are going to be sore for a week, the doctor said. Nothing permanent, but I recommend rest. Lots of rest, Taemin nodded. All he wanted was to sleep for about 12 hours. But he knew that would not happen. There would be reports to file, debriefings to attend, and apparently now a galaxy full of aliens who wanted to meet him. A tone sounded in the medical wing. Veshka's voice came through the speakers. Human Taemin, your presence is requested in the Diplomatic Assembly Hall. Representatives from 40 species wish to meet with you. Ji-Won looked at him. Can you walk? I can walk, Taemin said, standing up carefully. Everything hurt, but he could move. He had moved through worse pain during military training. They made their way to the assembly hall. The corridors of the station felt different now. Aliens stopped and stared as Taemin walked past. Some bowed their heads. Others made gestures that he assumed were signs of respect in their cultures. A group of young aliens, children of various species, watched him with wide eyes full of awe. The assembly hall was enormous. with seating for hundreds of diplomats from different species. Today it was full. Representatives from species across the galaxy had gathered. When Taemin entered, they all stood. The sound of hundreds of beings rising was like thunder. He walked to the center platform where speakers addressed the assembly. He felt very small and very human among all these different alien forms, but he stood straight and tried to look like someone who deserved to be there. An elderly Vrexian diplomat approached the podium. The Vrexians were the species Earth had been negotiating the treaty with. "Human Taemin," the diplomat said, his voice amplified through the hall. "Today you have done more than win a single combat trial. You have opened the eyes of the galactic community to the potential of your species. Earth has been seen as a minor power, too weak to compete with established civilizations. Today you proved that perception wrong." The Vrexian paused. "On behalf of the Vrexian Empire, and with the support of the species gathered here, I formally recognize Earth as a Tier 2 civilization with full voting rights in the Galactic Council. This is an unprecedented rise for a species that joined us only 10 years ago." The assembly erupted in sounds of approval. Different species made different noises, but the message was clear. Earth had just been promoted in galactic standing. Taemin stood there, not sure what to say. He had come here to deliver papers. Now Earth's entire diplomatic status had changed. Because he won a fight, the Vrexian continued. "Additionally, the treaty regarding resource sharing and trade has been approved unanimously. Earth will have full access to disputed territories, and multiple species have requested to open new trade negotiations." More sounds of approval. The Vrexian gestured for Taemin to approach the podium. He walked up, his legs still shaking slightly from exhaustion. "Would you like to say anything?" the Vrexian asked quietly. Taemin looked out at the assembly. Hundreds of alien faces looked back at him. He thought about what to say. Some grand speech about humanity's place in the galaxy? Some humble statement about doing his duty? Instead, he spoke simply. "Humans are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest or the toughest. But we are persistent. We adapt, we learn. We never give up," he paused. "And we remember our friends and our enemies. Earth looks forward to working with all species who approach us with respect. We will be good allies, but we will not be victims." The assembly was quiet for a moment. Then they erupted in approval again, louder than before. Taemin stepped back from the podium. The ceremony continued with various speeches and formal declarations, but he barely heard them. He was thinking about home. About his father who had taught him taekwondo as a child. About his military instructors who had trained him to fight and survive. About all the humans throughout history who had developed the combat arts that saved his life today. They would probably never know that their knowledge had changed Earth's place in the galaxy. But Taemin knew, and he would make sure it was not forgotten. Later, after the assembly ended, he finally made it back to his small quarters on the station. Jiwan walked him to the door. "Get some rest," she said. "Tomorrow's going to be even crazier." "I believe it," Taemin said. He opened the door, then paused. "Jiwan? Thank you for believing I could win." She smiled. "I did not believe you could win. I thought you were going to die. But I am very happy to be wrong." He laughed, which hurt his bruised ribs, and went inside. His quarters were small but comfortable. He sat on the bed and pulled out his personal communication device. After a moment of thought, he recorded a message.